Welcome back to another Tale of the Tape. Today we're breaking down Louisiana State wide receiver Malik Nabers, going from start to finish, telling the entire story of Malik Nabers and whether or not you should hit the draft button on him this coming spring. If you guys enjoy, if you get some value from this, leave a like, subscribe if you're new around here. Now let's get into it. All right, Malik Nabers. This is his Tale of the Tape, wide receiver of the Louisiana State Tigers. He is standing 6 foot, 200 pounds, officially weighed in at the NFL Scouting Combine, born July 28th, 2003. He's going to be under 21 years old on the night of the draft and won't be 21 years old until training camp. He is actually a year younger than Marvin Harrison Jr. and Romo Dunze, the two guys that are also vying for that top spot at wide receiver. 4-star recruit to LSU in 2021. He was the number 19 wide receiver in the 2021 recruiting class. He stayed in state as a Louisiana kid and played college ball at LSU. Got off to a nice start his freshman season. You guys can see there 430 yards, 47 targets, 4 touchdowns, averaged about 15 yards per catch as well. So pretty impressive for a freshman wide receiver at 18 years old, competing for targets with Brian Thomas Jr., who was actually a higher recruit than him in the same recruiting class. And also Kayshon Boutte, who at the time was considered to be a pro prospect coming off of a monster freshman season himself as a sophomore. So definitely two guys that he was competing for NFL touches with. In 2022, he comes out, has a nice sophomore year, 1,017 yards and 3 touchdowns, 77.6 PFF receiving grade. Again, outproducing Brian Thomas Jr., outproducing Kayshon Boutte, who was actually in his draft eligible season. So very impressive that he did that. In 2023, coming into the year, I talked about him in summer scouting as this could be a guy who vies for the top receiver in the class behind Marvin Harrison Jr. if he can put it all together. And that is exactly what happened. Malik Nabers comes out as a junior, 128 targets, 89 receptions, 1,568 receiving yards, 14 touchdowns, led all of the country in PFF receiving grade with a 93.1. That's like a top 5 number in the PFF college era too, up there with Devontae Smith's Heisman winning seasons. So with Malik Nabers, you're looking at a guy who progressed every year of his college career and culminating in a monster junior season that should have won him the Biletnikoff Award. As great as Marvin's season was, I believe Malik was better this year. He led the country with 3.64 yards per route run, 93.1 receiving grade. Again, you look at the experience-adjusted receiving yards market share, and he's well over the marks as a sophomore and as a junior. In 2023, like I said, I think he was robbed of the Biletnikoff Award. No disrespect to Marvin Harrison. I think Marvin should have won it in 2022, and Malik should have won it in 2023. I think he's expected to be comfortably a top 5 to 8 NFL draft pick. The most common mock draft spot that we see for Malik Nabers is actually the Los Angeles Chargers at number 5 overall, but I've also seen him go to the Giants a lot at number 6 overall, sometimes Tennessee at number 7 overall, even maybe to the Atlanta Falcons at 8, or to the Chicago Bears at 9. So let's get into the traits with Malik Nabers. And again, I want to reiterate that unfortunately I cannot show any film clips as I'm talking about this. Got into some trouble last year by YouTube for doing that. But if you do want a full all 22 breakdown of Malik Nabers, me and Danny are going to break that down. I'm going to record that right after I'm done this. Malik Nabers film breakdown, as well as Marvin's, which is already live on the site. That is available on flockfantasy.com. You can start your free trial today. Link will be down below in the description for that, and promo code FSE gets you 30% off any of the subscriptions, and we are going to be aiming to have, 20, 25 film breakdowns done by the time the NFL draft kicks off. But the fundamental traits of wide receivers, I broke them down in depth in years past. The first one is route running and separation ability. Of course, your ability to get open is definitely going to determine your ability to earn targets, which is exactly what we care about as fantasy football players. Malik Nabers, easy separator. He has the full route tree at his disposal. We didn't get any athletic testing numbers for Malik Nabers, and we honestly might never get any testing numbers because his pro day is on March 27th. He knows that he is a locked-in top 10 pick, so he might not test at all. There's only really negative things to be gleamed from him testing, but honestly, I have no doubt that he is an exceptional athlete with elite explosiveness, burst, and agility testing. So if he had tested at the NFL Scouting Combine, I'm sure he would have ran in the 4.3s, jumped really high, had had great elite agility scores. He played in the best conference in college football, in the SEC. He scorched teams like Alabama for 170 yards and a touchdown. Mississippi State, 239 and 2 touchdowns. Florida, 132 yards. A&M for 122 and 2 touchdowns. He was an absolute menace this year, and you don't get to be that level without being able to run routes at a high level. He has the framework, in my opinion, to become an elite route runner with his understanding of leverage. I think when he was in man coverage, he understood what he needed to do to get open, twitched up ability to win and explode out of his routes against man specifically, and most importantly, he's doing this in the SEC as a 20-year-old player. So much left on the bone in terms of development for him. That's why we like young prospects in Dynasty specifically, because it's not that being old is bad. It's that when a prospect needs work, as most of them do, as a route runner especially, it's way easier to project a very young player to get better as a route runner than it is to project a guy that's played 6 years of college football to get better as a young player. So he has some refinement as a route runner that he needs to work on. He's definitely not as refined as Marvin Harrison is, but that is coachable. That is something that his future NFL team can look at and realize that he has a lot of ability in this area. He just needs to refine that framework specifically against zone coverage. I saw a little bit of lack of spatial awareness there, but it really nitpicking with Malik Nabers' route running ability. So number 2 fundamental trait for Malik Nabers is his hands, right? How good is he in contested situations? How good is he, in terms of avoiding drops and that kind of thing? Pretty reliable hands, I would say, especially as a ball tracker downfield. He was used quite a bit as a downfield weapon at LSU. Of course, Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy because of their ability to stretch the field as an offense. He averaged 12.2 average depth of target, so he was primarily a intermediate to deep threat. Great ball tracker on deep shots when there was a lot of them, especially in 2023. He also displayed a lot of good ability in contested situations as well. He has really good body control. He's good at locating the football and attacking it. He also worked back to the football on comeback routes and curl routes as well, which is something I always look for wide receiver prospects because it kind of shows their natural ability to attack the football. This was, however, though, his biggest red flag for me on tape because he went 2 for 7 in contested situations against Alabama and against Florida. Terrion Arnold specifically, who's a top cornerback prospect in this draft, did give him some fits at the catch point against Alabama, and I thought he was outmuscled a little bit. But overall, though, a career contested catch rate of 50% and 61.9% in 2022. Just 2023 left a little bit to be desired. He went 10 for 22 on contested catches. Like I said, primarily struggling against Florida and Alabama in that area. He's a young guy. He can get in the weight room. He could add another 5-10 pounds to his frame if he wants to. I think he's got the ability in this area. He just needs to refine his hands a little bit, get on the jugs machine, so on and so forth. So if I had to say there was a biggest criticism on Malik Nabers, it's probably his ability to win in contested situations. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds, doesn't have the frame of Rome Odunze or Marvin Harrison, but he is still pretty good in that area. And of course, he's very explosive to the point that he's not going to be in contested situations very often, hence why he led the country in receiving grade without being very good in that area. So number 3 on this list is his yards after catch ability, which is his best trait. So I go from his worst trait, contested catch ability, to his best trait. Of the 23 wide receivers that I have scouted and graded so far in this class, yards after catch ability, I think that Malik Nabers is the best one in this class. Of the 23 that I've watched so far, he is shot out of a cannon after the catch, 0 to 60 acceleration like a Ferrari. I don't say that lightly. A lot of receivers are good at, throttling down and shifting up when they get the ball in their hands. Few do it like Malik Nabers. He is an absolute bat out of hell physically when he gets the ball in his hands. He's very tough. He's going to break tackles consistently as well. He led the class with 30 missed tackles forced after the catch, or 34% of the time. So 34% of the time you're breaking a missed tackle after the catch. We're talking running back numbers. And again, remember that running backs get handed the ball. Wide receivers have to catch it downfield. So the fact that he's putting up running back numbers, yards after catch wise, is absolutely insanity. The other crazy thing about this is that 90% of his targets were non-screen passes. And again, he averaged 12.2 average depth of target. So we're not talking about a guy that's getting fed, screen passes every game and, inflating those yards after catch numbers. We're talking about a guy that's already winning downfield, getting the ball in his hands, and then again, winning after the catch. The DJ Moore comps, that's where this stems from. A lot of people have comped him to DJ Moore. Some people have comped him to Stephon Diggs. I've heard people comp him to Jamar Chase as well. I'm not going to spoil who my comp is yet, but it is very much a yards after catch threat at the NFL level. So Malik Nabers definitely has this trait in spades. I actually gave him a perfect grade in yards after catch ability because I do believe he is you can't get any better than Malik Nabers is after the catch. So next we get into 3-level ability. And again, you want a receiver ideally that can win short, intermediate, and deep. You don't want a receiver that wins only short on screen passes. You don't want a receiver that only wins deep on deep routes. You can even see this when you just watch his highlight tape, that he can win all over the field at any level of the field. And I actually think he's better than Marvin Harrison in this area because he has the speed and the explosiveness, that acceleration ability for more design touches and short targets even than Marvin does. But the route running and the intermediate targets are the thing that Marvin Harrison actually beats him out in. But both guys are very good all 3 levels of the field. The deep speed for Malik Nabers, the ball tracking to do damage down the field. Again, even better than what Marvin Harrison represents, but Marvin, of course, has the size that kind of factors in. 44.9% of Malik Nabers' plays this year were considered boom plays or explosive plays, according to Sports Info Solutions. That mark ranked second in the class, and it was first if you only qualify receivers with 70-plus targets. So this is a guy that when he touches the ball, good things are about to happen. He is a walking big play, and he saw 29 targets of 20-plus yards down the field, which was also second among all wide receivers in this class. So you want to use this guy down the field. You want to use this guy intermediate. You want to use this guy short. He is a do-it-all weapon. Athleticism is the next trait that we're going to get into. Similar to Marvin Harrison, unfortunately, we did not get any athletic testing from Malik Nabers, so I don't have his RAS score. I don't have his 40 time. I don't really have anything. He does have his pro day on March 27th, but I don't think he's going to actually do anything because he knows he's going to be a top 5 to 10 pick regardless, and he only really has stuff to lose by testing at his pro day. Maybe he does some on-field drills, whatever the case is. On film, though, you can just check the box that this guy's an exceptional athlete. I don't really need to see him test because I saw him and Brian Thomas Jr. on the same field together, and both guys looked like they were similar levels of athleticism, and if anything, I think Malik Nabers was a better athlete, and Brian Thomas ran 4.33 at the combine, obviously jumped out the gym, had an excellent RAS score. So I do think, when you factor in that Malik Nabers ran 4.47 coming out of high school, I'm sure he would have topped the 4.3s, knowing that, again, when I watched the film, it looked like he was a better athlete between him and Brian Thomas Jr. So again, check the box for athleticism, even though we did not get official testing numbers. Then when we get to the final box that we need to check, and that is production profile, it doesn't get much better than Malik Nabers, man. Marvin Harrison's is generational, his production profile, but Malik Nabers is damn close. He led the country with 3.64 yards per route run this year. That is a very sticky stat, a very predictive metric. 31.4% target share with Brian Thomas on the field, who's going to be a top 20 NFL draft pick. Check the box there. 25.38 PPR points per game was second best of any season that a wide receiver in this class had. Again, we're solving for fantasy production, so PPR points per game is very relevant, and Malik Nabers was an elite wide receiver in that area. 93.1 PFF receiving grade. That's an elite number. It's the best since Devontae Smith's Heisman winning season. Excellent number for a Power 5 wide receiver. Elite yards per route run versus man coverage and zone coverage. He was top 5 in the class in both. A whopping 37% target share against man coverage as well. This guy's profile is an absolute A+. It does not get much better than this. His film has minimal concerns. As I talked about, there's a few concerns on it. He just happens to be in the same class as Marvin Harrison Jr. If he was not in this class, if he was in last year's class or in 2022's class, he would have been my number 1 wide receiver in those classes respectively. Some of the subjective things that I also factored into my grade as well that aren't necessarily one of those 6 fundamental traits. He's a great run blocker. I thought he created a lot of rushing lanes for Jaden Daniels as well as his running backs. I actually remember there was a seal block that he had where he was pushing a guy out the back of the end zone on a Brian Thomas Jr. jet sweep that went for a touchdown against Florida. So Malik Nabers also very unselfish, not the type of diva wide receiver that you have to worry about. Football IQ wise, I think he's still very much a raw player in this area, definitely still a young player. As I mentioned, spatial awareness wasn't always his strong suit, especially against zone coverage. He kind of ran and rounded some routes into a window that a defender was squatting on. So the big thing for me is just trusting the development that I saw from him, freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, because when a player shows that they can develop as their college career goes on, he got better every single year of his college career. I trust that he's going to do the same thing in the NFL. It's one of the biggest green flags for me. Malik Nabers, if you could draw up a wide receiver prospect in a lab, you want a productive freshman season, a productive sophomore season, even more than the freshman season, and then a blow-up junior season. That's exactly the profile that Malik Nabers had. It's very similar to the profile we saw of A.J. Brown coming out of school, the profile that we saw of Justin Jefferson coming out of school. The guys that have really, really easy profiles are good freshmen, great sophomore, elite junior. That's exactly what we want to see, and that's exactly what we have with Malik Nabers. He's also a very tough player, especially with the ball in his hands. He does not want to go down, hence all of those missed tackles forced. And throughout his routes, he's also very physical at the top of them as well. When it comes to final grading, his final grade came out to be a 90 out of 100. That is the third highest grade I have given a wide receiver since 2021. So Marvin Harrison and Jamar Chase are the only two that are ahead of him. He tied for third with Devontae Smith, who also had a 90 out of 100 coming out of school as well. So the biggest strengths for Malik Nabers, pretty obvious. He's very explosive, very good agility, physicality, also really strong route running chops, pretty strong as well. Yards after catch, he's absolutely elite in this area. His production profile, absolutely elite in that area. And his ability to beat press coverage, I thought was very strong as well. Again, weaknesses, he has more than Marvin Harrison, but they're pretty minimal. They're pretty coachable. Route running refinement, football IQ, contested catch acumen, and a few drops here and there. Again, very minimal concerns. I think that he could not fix any of those things and still be a top receiver from a fantasy perspective, but a good coaching staff will be able to get some of those things out of his game. My pro comparison for him, I've heard Jamar Chase, I've heard Stephon Diggs, I've heard DJ Moore. My pro comparison for Malik Nabers is Brandon Ayuk, all-pro wide receiver this past year for the 49ers, major yards after the catch threat, great athlete, explosive downfield guy. He led the NFL in yards per reception this past year. I think Malik Nabers is a much more refined version of Brandon Ayuk coming out of Arizona State, because if you guys recall, I was a big fan of Brandon Ayuk coming out of Arizona State, but he wasn't quite developed to the point that he is now. And Malik Nabers, as a prospect, I think is almost as good as like second or third year Brandon Ayuk was in the NFL. So you're looking at a guy way ahead of the timeline on Brandon Ayuk's development. The sky is the absolute limit for this guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he was as good as Brandon Ayuk as a rookie, and he becomes one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, because I think Ayuk has notoriously been one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. Ideal landing spot for Malik Nabers, I think he's a very solid X wide receiver projection. Any one of the Arizona Cardinals at 4, the Los Angeles Chargers at 5, the New York Giants at 6, Tennessee Titans at 7, New York Jets at 10. Any of those teams really make a lot of sense. Chicago Bears at 9 as well. I think the most ideal landing spot from a fantasy perspective for Malik Nabers would be the Cardinals at 4 or the Chargers at 5, because none of those teams really have any other wide receivers to throw to, and they also have good quarterbacks with Kyler Murray and with Justin Herbert. So my prediction probably is that Marvin goes 4, and if the Chargers don't trade out of 5, they're probably going to just take Malik Nabers at 5 there, and he would be an excellent addition to that team. In terms of rookie draft outlook, what you guys should be doing with him in startup drafts, in rookie drafts right now, among veterans, I have Malik Nabers as my dynasty wide receiver 8. So I have him just behind A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, just ahead of Chris Olave and Drake London and those type of guys. I value him as a late second round, early third round startup value pick in super flex leagues. And in one quarterback leagues, more of like a late first, early second round pick. So if you're talking about the type of asset that you need to, trade away the 104 for or the 105 for, where you can get Malik Nabers with that pick, you need a top 30 overall asset in return to consider trading that pick. So if you're a contending team and you just want to trade off of Malik Nabers at 104, you probably need Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, somebody like that. In a rookie draft setting, I would be very comfortable taking Malik Nabers as high as 103, as high as 104, as high as 105. He's in that tier with Drake May and Jaden Daniels, depending on your need for a quarterback on your existing dynasty roster. If you don't need a quarterback and 103 comes on the board and Drake May goes to the Vikings and you can trade down to the 105 and still get Malik Nabers, that's definitely a very sharp move, but I wouldn't be opposed to just taking Malik Nabers with that pick. This is an elite prospect who would be wide receiver 1 in any other class really outside of 2021 with Jamar Chase. 2020 maybe with CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson types, but 2022 where Drake London was my highest graded prospect, I have Malik Nabers with a higher grade. 2023 where JSN and Jordan Addison were right there as the top prospects, I have Malik Nabers with a way higher grade than those guys. So again, if you want the Malik Nabers film breakdown, unfortunately I wasn't able to show a whole lot of film on this video. Marvin Harrison and Malik Nabers, we do have their film breakdowns live now on the site. Flockfantasy.com, code FSE gets you a 7-day free trial if you want to check it out for free. 30% off any of the packages, 6 months for free if you want to sign up annually over there. And of course, Marvin Harrison's film breakdown is live already, and we will have a ton more. Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, all those guys coming very, very soon as well. It's the best place to be if you're a dynasty player, because in addition to those film breakdowns, you'll also get our draft guide, which has our top 50 prospects graded, written up, pro comparisons, strengths, weaknesses, all that stuff, fantasy outlook, what we would do with them in a rookie draft. Our draft guide, the Dynasty Wall Street Journal version 2.0, has 50 prospects. Me and Danny both giving our opinions on all 50. All of the guides from the other content creators on the site, Mason, Zach, and Badake of the Dynasty Land, the Dynasty Domain guys, all of those guys have put out like draft guides and bonus content on these rookies as well. You'll get that for free when you sign up on the site. Priority to Dynasty Decisions episodes. If you guys want to get our opinion in a video format, you guys know what Dynasty Decision is at this point in time. And of course, you'll also get our Dynasty and rookie rankings. You'll also get trade value charts. You also get these player cards. So much more. Link down below in the pinned comment and in the description for that. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.